Welcome to this edition of the Memory Team Monday meeting. So for this meeting, we're going to run through the 13.5 planning issue. It's mostly about wrapping up the image resizing work. We had linked to the security epic, but we were done with that. So let's go back up to the parent epic.
So like this epic is really confusing because we had so many different potential solutions and it like manifests itself in different ways in all of these solutions. Right. So I guess it will be done. Like we got a thumbs up from Andrew on the latest MR, but there was like an open question around like, do we still need to reduce user priorities for user privileges for this process? Because it will still run as the Git user. You know, just using Golang doesn't help with that. So it would still be able in theory to read like files created by Git, which is, I don't know if that's a problem or not. I reached out to him. Let's see what he says.
Sorry, I lost the issue got closed out. Are you talking about the security issue, security epic?
Yeah, I'm only saying this because I'm not sure if there will be more work in that or not. So I wonder if we can call it closed or not.
I ended up closing it this morning since all the issues within were closed out.
I know.
And
yeah.
If something else pops up, we can always open it back up.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then, so we're talking about a Golang solution incorporated within Workhorse. Are all the representative issues in this parent epic that we have, all the work that needs to be done for 13.5? It's kind of an open-ended question for everybody who's working on it. The only thing, we have all these 13.5 issues. There are 2 that are currently assigned. We still need to make sure that we are caching, right? Because there's a question about dynamically scaling every image that comes through. Is there any extra work we need to do for caching?
I think like okay. I mean, I think we're not sure, right? I mean, it's not even in production, so I think we should deploy it to see how it performs, and if it's fast enough. I'm not sure we know this at this point, whether we need to do anything on top of CDN caches, I guess, right? I guess the only caching that we currently deploy for that is CDN caches. So simple HTTP caches.
Oh, I guess like it should be pretty much cached by the Cloudflare if we have the correct headers. So I guess like the only potential thing for GitLab.com would be ensuring that we have the correct headers for the caching.
Maybe after.
I'm not sure exactly how we're gonna solve on-prem, but our documentation has some links for the configuring CDN for the on-prem installations. So maybe that's the way.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is as well, like, what is, like, we need to see, is it even worth looking at additional caching outside of CDNs? Because for small images, as we've seen, it's fairly fast, right? So I'm just wondering, like, what the trade-offs are, because, you know, it would save us a little bit of CPU time spent, I suppose, which I guess is cost, but I don't have a really good grip on like how that actually factors into dollar cost. There's like another issue around this here somewhere called,
I think it's
we never really did. It's like, yeah, exactly, the second one from the top. So I guess those kind of go hand in hand, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about like hundreds of milliseconds, I think we spent more time in Rails and most of the methods have so far. So it doesn't seem like a huge offender to me, especially if like CDN caching will work. So I would not prioritize Nginx caching here.
I mean, yeah, I don't think that's a good comparison because those are different nodes, right? I mean, the scaler will run in Workhorse, so it might have an effect on CPU utilization, you know, on Workhorse. So if that like translates into dollar costs, then it might now become more expensive to run workhorse nodes in GCP.
And since workhorse is not on separate nodes, I was looking at some number with someone when we were looking at logs and everything. It's kind of difficult to.
Workhorse does not run on dedicated nodes?
At least as far as I
But
understand.
on metrics, it show like the whole component CPU metrics. I think that's what Nicola mentioned.
Yes.
Doesn't so.
So
oh,
as far as I know, we always run workhorse side by side to the Puma, because workhorse can access temporary files and pass them to the Puma.
Okay.
And it holds also true for the cloud native that workhorse in Puma are considered the same pod, but separate containers. So
yeah, okay, all right. So
it's always kind of being run as a pack, basically. And there is like one workhorse to one Puma.
All right, cool. Yeah, okay, that's good.
Yeah, and in logs, we don't have the CPU utilization or CPU time for the resize itself. So it was difficult to like track the things that are currently in production, like how much CPU time it requires.
Yeah, I think the order of things should be, let's first merge this MR, let's deploy it, let's see how it performs, and then we can see, does it have such a significant impact on these nodes that we actually need to consider caching? Otherwise, I would just leave that open for now.
Yeah, that's true, because we currently roll it out only for, I think, at first for 100 users, so it wasn't visible at all for the CPU utilization.
Also keep in mind that we did measure initially completely outside of the solution that we chose, that we were seeing around 30 requests per second actually hitting the application for Scalar. That's a tiny amount, like compared to the other traffic we get, and that's for .com. So for self-managed, it would be much, much less than that even, right?
I think it would benefit us to maybe like group all this issue into 2 or 3 epics. Like first one is what we need to roll out the solution. What is like critical to get the first rollout. The second one is what are follow-ups that we could like get to after rollout. Maybe they're blocked by rollout itself. And third one is something we will pass to let's say the further team. Maybe. Because definitely like too many issues in the same bucket.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be nice to have like a sub-epic that is kind of the production readiness of image scaling, because we've spent most of the time experimenting and testing stuff. And there's a number of other things. Like I'm looking at runbooks, for instance, right now, and alerts. I think we should have a runbook for this, and we should have alerts for this as well, because like we're the only team familiar with this stuff, and we are not on call. So SREs need to know what to do if we, for instance, trip this 100 process threshold in production, right? Because that means like image scaling will silently break, and we won't even know. So I'm throwing together stuff for this right now, but maybe it would be good to have a sub-epic that tracks the work for making this production ready. And then caching maybe can even be part of this. It could be one of the last tasks to decide, you know, if this is something we want to do now or in the future or at all. Yes, I think we should. I mean, I'm doing it right now. Because this is, this is kind of like a bit of a special thing now in Workhorse that is not super obvious, like how it operates. And you could tell by different people reviewing the MRs, there were always a lot of questions around like how does that work? What happens when? I have an MR open already that I'm working on.
Craig, I'm kind of thinking in our like discussion with the blueprints, should like image scaling have like dedicated epic blueprint? I mean, like.
Yeah, we're kind of in the spot where it would have been a good idea had this blueprint process been created. Excuse me.
I mean, the whole process of rolling such features like runbooks, testing, and so on.
I mean, the idea behind the blueprint, you kind of have the architectural tab to the bottom. Like on the top, you have like the high-level synopsis of the problem and like how you in general want to approach that. But like, and this is like maybe like the most parent epic. And like if you have someone, I don't know, PM, engineering manager, or someone else who wants to understand exactly the high level what we are doing, you can kind of give them a blueprint to discuss, and it also kind of declares who is doing what in that, like, and who is the expert, who is the owner, who is like DRI, and like basically like not like makes it clear about the individuals and their responsibilities. So I'm kind of like praising that because we kind of are discussing these blueprints quite extensively recently, and I'm not sure. Maybe this is like the right topic to have a blueprint for.
What is a blueprint? I'm not familiar with this.
Yeah, it's part of the working group, the architectural kickoff working group, and I'm trying to find the handbook entry for it now. So yeah, Camille did a fairly good description here. I will find it and link it in, so you're all not waiting for me here. Found it.
So I linked in this below architecture workflow, and it's actually like described fully about the blueprints and all aspects. So you can take a look at that, Matthias and Alexi, and read that through.
I'm not sure on that, Camille, on whether or not we should create a blueprint, because it's kind of a interesting balancing act, right? It's a newer process than the work that we kicked off here. It might make sense, but how many of these efforts would we have to go back and retroactively add to blueprints?
I was just thinking that. So, it sounds like something you would do for like a new project.
Yes.
Come up,
so
but like
I mean, like, just I think Alexi, Matthias, just read that document and just make a decision if it's worth from your perspective or not.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. I mean, there's definitely interesting stuff in there, like finding DRIs, and yeah, you know, to the point of like who to hand it off to. This is something we need to think about. Yeah, I'm also not sure like who. I mean, how do we decide that? Because I think the idea is that we will not own this in the longer term, right?
Right. Yeah, and was it how do you pronounce his name? Jakob? Am I pronouncing it right? Okay. Yeah, he indicated on the issue that the workhorse maintainers could pick up the Golang implementation that we talked about because it's so small, and they're confident that it's not going to cause any issues. So the image resizing as it's currently envisioned, they were happy. They said they would take on the support of it. So. Okay, so it sounds like we have some at least organizational work to do as far as creating a sub-epic to kind of coordinate and organize the work remaining for rolling that one out. And there was something else. We do need to mark items as deliverable for this milestone. I can, since it's the end of your day, I can create that sub-epic and start organizing the issues, and I will ping everyone on the channel so you can get in the issues. It makes sense if I miss anything.
Yep, sounds good. I think we can probably also move the feature flag issue into that sub-epic. There's a couple existing ones that make sense to move.
All right, let's get back to the planning issue. So, and then the next one, establish best practices for handling cache SQL calls. So Nicola's been working on this off and on for a little while. I saw that Alexi picked something up, and Chinyu's been looking at it. The goal here is to pick up representative examples so we can roll out some good examples and enable other teams to do this for themselves. So we're not trying to find all of them. Chinyu asked, is 3 too many? If everybody's already into the ones that they're working on, have already started making progress, I don't think so. I think it's fine to finish up what's been started. But again, let's not try to do them all. Let's figure out if there are any patterns. Sorry, go ahead, Alexi.
We started to discuss it with Nicola just an hour ago because, I mean, there are a couple of complexities about this whole stuff. The ground is shifting, so because it highly depends on the data and on the even maybe related contents of the tables and so on. So on some day you could see some queries are leading, on another day you could see another queries are leading. So we're trying to figure out how to find the best criteria.
Yeah, I would like to just summarize like what we are trying to achieve. Like, yeah, we have a lot of endpoints that have potential like cache SQL queries. So I think that we would like to provide a metric or a way for like everybody to take a look and detect those endpoints that potentially has SQL queries. So we were concentrating on that metric that is already generated, but it turns out that it can happen that it highly depends on the data and the content of the endpoint. So for example, if we are creating a node, it can have 0 n+1 cache queries because the node doesn't contain any markup, and it can contain 9,000 cache queries because the markup is complex and it's linking a lot of labels, snippets, MRs, and everything else. So we will need to like agree on the metric itself that it shows representative like endpoints. And the other thing that we should do probably is to at least document it somehow, maybe provide a way how to write tests, because for example, in tests for n+1 queries, we are using the cache counter that is counting the number of queries and detects the potential n+1. Maybe we can use the same one that because it contains the support for cache queries, and provide and document a way how to write n+1 cache queries as well. So if anyone solve one, it can cover it with tests. And we should provide examples how we solve it. So the question is, what is the most, I don't know, impactful way to do it? So maybe we can solve, for example, we saw examples where we have 12,000 cache queries, but it happens only occasionally, like from 60,000 times, it happens only 100 times for specific projects, and it's tricky to debug, it's tricky to like recreate and reproduce. So maybe we should more concentrate on the ones that are reproducing every time, and then we can like create a metric that will detect those kind of endpoints, and we can like shift them to other teams and say, okay, these are obviously happening on every request, not dependent on the data and on content, and you just need to take a look at the logs and reproduce it and see which queries are cached and repeating itself, and just try to resolve it. So maybe we need to simplify this a little bit.
Yeah, what I'm still don't understand, and maybe I wanted to ask a team, what is more critical for us? An accident memory spikes, like we have this T-Mobile project, they have like very heavy queries, and they have like tons of cached queries, but they only called accidentally, for example, when they create a new project in a huge namespace. Or are we curious about like consistent memory addition? Let's say when we have regular but not that severe cache SQL amount in, let's say, many requests, which happen quite often. What is more critical for us at this point? What do you think? Should we concentrate on these like huge spikes, which could take a lot of memory at once, or should we concentrate on something that takes memory on every byte by a small amount?
Yeah, that's true. Because if we concentrate to resolve 2 or 3 of them as example and like hand them over to other teams, then maybe we need the endpoints that are obvious to have n+1 cache queries and easy to reproduce and show them as example, because those kind of spikes are a little bit tricky because it really depends on the database structure, relations, and maybe
Yeah.
even, so,
but we need to solve them, right? If it's critical, if this T-Mobile causes a huge issues for
yeah, but maybe
production,
that's
we
separate
still
thing to do. Depends what we want to do with this.
yeah.
Hmm?
Sorry,
But
Nicola,
that's a
to
fair question.
clarify, when you say depends on what we want to do with this, are you talking about the overall epic and what we want to do long term?
Both. Because
Yeah,
I think that we should like separate them, because those kind of obvious things can take a little like less time. If it's obvious, it generates, it's easy to reproduce, it should be easy to reproduce, but still
Right.
depends, like for example, like importing from Bitbucket requires you to have Bitbucket account and a project to import, so it's not always easy to reproduce that endpoint. But if it's easy to reproduce, it's easy to see log, and it's obvious what you need to do. But for those spikes, it's more tricky. It can take 2 weeks just to explore what's going on and what's happening there.
Yeah, in the spirit of iteration, I'd say go with the obvious ones, the ones that are easy to reproduce. So we can have a few examples, and maybe we'll find some patterns in there, and that should help us to better solve the ones that are spikes, I would imagine.
And to answer on Camille a question, I extended the cache counter for all our specs to take into account for cache queries, but they are not written, like we don't have a lot of endpoints covered with this n+1 check. And also the specs are written that way that we are just like adding one more thing and then comparing the results, which will not always result in n+1.
Yeah, I think with spec it goes with minimal setup, right? One user, one project.
I tried to enable it for every cache counter that we use in our specs, and I didn't detect any n+1 cache queries, which doesn't mean that they're not there. So yeah.
So it almost seems like we could like extend specs on some sort of crazy automatic creation of additional object on every object creation. So when we attach a user, we should attach 2 users. Maybe then we will, you know, get some n+1. I don't know. Sorry, Camille.
My only comment was life is hard.
Yeah, it's tricky, especially for those endpoints that are like related to the actual content or a structure. So
Okay. Yeah, I'll review that epic too, make sure, take a look, see if there's anything missing on that one. Back to 13.5, that one. There's the quick spike to enable roam and snowplow. Joshua wanted someone to pick that up and take a look at it and spend a couple days effort. If it takes too long, then we can redirect to another team with more front-end experience. So if anybody has any questions, take a look at that issue, and then start looking forward to Ruby 2.7 support. So there's a lot of memory improvements, garbage collection, and compaction improvements in 2.7. This epic is not very well broken down yet, because I have to imagine there's going to be a lot of research on our end on how to even get it up and testing. There were some comments about it's not that hard, famous last words, to get a 2.7 environment and start just even testing against it. Stan has done some work there, but I would imagine we're going to spend a good amount of time talking about goals and efforts around what we want to test, how we want to test on 2.7. So that's been added in there. And the related issue about impact of using Ruby 2.7 on memory usage. This one we won't even take a look at for 13.5, this last issue. So, any questions on that? I think the 13.5 sounds like there's a couple more issues that'll be created based on the discussions that we've had today, and will be added to 13.5. It looks like I kicked out a couple issues from 13.5 that have been long-standing carryovers. I just threw them in the backlog. Yeah, so let's run through the issues real quick and see if there's anything we need to mark as deliverable. So there were discussions at one point in time that when we were doing the dynamic image resizing that we weren't hitting the right image sizes. Do we still need to go through and revisit the supported avatar sizes?
Yes, we do. I'm currently preparing the MR because at the moment we are like supporting upscaling 400 pixels and we are supporting 200 pixels, which is not at all the resize size. And we didn't take into consideration the most popular ones. So there is still a kind of open discussion, but I think that we mostly agree to support those most popular sizes. And when there is a separate issue that we should in the end consolidate all those sizes, because we at the moment support like 13, 14, 15, 16 pixels for avatar size. And there was some discussion about supporting the sizes for the high density screens that should double the sizes, but this is the separate effort that probably front-end team will go, so we can easily again revisit the supported avatar size when this effort is finished. But at the moment, I think with this dynamic resizing, we can support those popular sizes, all of them.
All right. That one's already marked as deliverable. We already talked about caching options. I don't know if anybody caught this one during the last retro, the comments that I think Matthias mainly brought up about improving the feedback cycle. There was good conversation in our retro about it, and the engineering-wide retro, they wanted us to follow up and kind of give some more feedback on some improvements. The main one was easier access to SciSense, but I'll go back through that issue and make sure that we've carried forward or actually documented some improvements there. So if anybody has any ideas that they want to add to that, that's a follow-up item that we have to deliver for the next big retro. See, the deduplication strategy, is that something we're going to deliver in this milestone?
This is the small MR, like I just extracted it from the static image resizing because it's implements just another deduplication strategy that prevents the sidekick job to be like scheduled and executed twice at the same time. So I guess we can like benefit from it. It's not used anywhere. Camille suggested in the MR that we can probably deliver it sometime. Mm-hmm. It's small, it's on maintainer review, but I didn't check if it was reviewed. So there is not much work there.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can probably deliver it.
Okay.
If there are no objections. The only thing is that it's not at the moment used anywhere.
All right. Binary matching extension. You're on mute, Matthias.
Matthias, you're muted.
Sorry. So this is part of the implementation of the open MR that is not merged yet. So it should be fixed together.
Yeah, it's already marked as deliverable. Feature flag rollout. Camille. Oh, I'm sorry, this is dynamic image resizing.
Yeah, this should happen this milestone, right? I mean, hopefully.
Yeah.
Should be. Then the next one, I keep wondering, like, because it's in our backlog, can we do anything about this, or like who owns that? Because I don't feel qualified to judge
Yeah, me
the
too.
scaling quality. I think that needs like front end designer eyes or something, because
Okay.
I wonder, like, with this kind of stuff, I keep thinking I would just like ship what we have, show it to people, and ask them, is that good enough? You know, like, because if it's good enough, then there's probably no need for an issue.
Yeah, I mean, this issue, we could keep it if you want to show it to designer, like specifically, like if you want ask designers, is it good enough? If not, then we could close it.
Well, what I'm thinking is we're kind of committed to shipping the Go scaler anyway, right? So if we ship it, and it will be still behind a feature flag for a while, I would rather like can we just tie it to that, and then maybe
Yeah, we could, I think.
just spend like an hour or so with like someone from, I don't know who it would be, to be honest, but find someone who has like a good opinion on this stuff, pair with them, and see like look like this is how I can enable it for your avatar, for instance, and then you can, you know, load it in different sizes and kind of like tell us if that's something that's good enough, or whether we need to revisit the fine tuning there.
If Jackie's not copied on this one, I'll make sure that she is, and we can indicate the workflow, like we actually roll it out, have them take a look and make sure that they approve. So
that would be
follow up
great.
on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
And I will remove the deliverable issue on it since there's dependencies and blockers. Let's see, memory leak on Sidekick Memory Killer. I will follow up with Chinyu later on today on this one, when he's actually awake. Okay, these two.
Related to those two, I'm not sure. We will probably like take a look again. I will think with
Yeah.
and tomorrow with Chinyu again. Maybe we will just take some other endpoint if this.
Because I already took another one also, because when I took this pipelines controller, like last Friday, it was trending, but today it's not trending at all on the last 5 days log. So there are other offenders today.
Okay.
So I started to like streamline the criteria a little bit better for myself, what to pick.
Yeah.
Because it's like shifting all the time, depending on data, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
yeah, I would even say maybe we could, if you need to mark something as deliverable, maybe an epic itself, or maybe an issue for a sub epic, which would be something like fix 1 or 2 or create a documentation. These two, not a particular ones, because we may close them.
Yep.
If they're not good examples.
Once we zero in on the specific issues, and we can mark them as deliverable later on. You can't mark epics as deliverable, so it's fine.
Oh, okay.
We'll leave these unmarked for now. Sounds like this one might be difficult to quantify, the estimate related CPU.
I mean, it was opened when we were not sure about a particular decision on implementation. Now it's clear, so I don't think we need this. We could like retroactively see the logs and see how much it hits. So I would even say it's not relevant anymore in such in such phrasing, because it would translate into monitor what we shipped, but it's like a different story.
Yeah, which we're gonna do anyway, right? I mean, I think this issue probably has value if we find that if we roll it out to a significant portion of our users, if we then see like a 20% CPU spike on average, then we probably need to go back and look at how does it translate into dollar costs.
So let's close it for now.
Could, yeah. I think Josh originally opened it, right? I think he was quite interested in like how this was definitely before we decided on like dynamic versus static. So we know the storage cost is like 0, right? Because we
how about we just reword it to reflect current state instead? So the fact that it's going to be hard for us to specifically measure this, but we'll keep track of the overall CPU impact of this as we slowly roll this out. so that we keep it in mind and we're not forgetting about it. So I will update to reflect the current state.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then the other two, we may not even get to this milestone, so I will leave them as is.
So my question would be is in terms of how we like split up the work between us. So did I understand correctly that like all three of you, Nicola, Alexei, and Chinyu, are working on the cache SQL issues now?
Actually, I picked cache SQL while waiting for Jakob's review. So my first priority is image resizing anyways.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't pick one yet, but I think that we should re-evaluate this metric and find the best way how to detect them. And in the meantime, I'm working on this, revisiting the actual image sizing. So, but I hope that I will finish developing today and I can start with SQL cache calls.
Okay, no, that sounds good. It's just like, because like I said, I'll be gone next week. So this week I'll still be working on the image scanning things that are open. It's just, yeah, let's make sure we at least do a handover then on Thursday or Friday, so that, because there's more work to do. So like,
there is, we can shift around.
Yeah, and finishing up the image resizing should be the highest priority as listed.
Definitely.
Okay. We have gotten through everything on the agenda. Is there anything else we need to cover for today? I have quite a few follow-up items to take care of. Any other topics for this meeting though?
I would like just to say to Grant that we can think later about this demo and how to provide the info that demo is importing and to override these due dates that he asked me. So yeah, we can think later. I will try to summarize it and maybe comment on the issue itself.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I take a look on Friday and I will just need to summarize the results. I didn't try it myself, but I think it will work.
Oh, good. No, that sounds great. Yeah, I didn't know really where else to turn to with import because all I know is this team has worked in it. So, thanks for doing that. We'll sync up later, and I'll be able to take it from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't want to interrupt too much.
All right. If there's nothing else, we'll call it. Thanks everybody. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Thank you. Happy Monday. Bye.